Happy spring, everyone. I believe it's officially spring now. We survived another Pacific Northwest winter, so congratulations. That every year I survive a winter, I'm like, wow, check another one off, you know. So once again, John Elville, your co-facilitator, joined by Emily.
Good morning, everybody. Emily Thomas Peralta. Nice to see you all.
Okay, well, why don't we go ahead and get through our initial slides here. Next slide, please. Just a reminder, we have closed captions available in English as well as in Spanish. English closed captions are available within Zoom and YouTube. Users can follow this link to view both English and Spanish captions in a separate browser window. Next slide, please. As a reminder as to how you may access closed captions, at the bottom middle of your screen, you should see a menu of options. If you can't see the menu, hover your mouse over the bottom middle of the screen. Put the square CC icon towards the right side of the menu to toggle captions on. Put the submenu arrow to access more settings, right, including language, font color, and font size. In the effort to continue to center equity, there is an ASL interpreter in addition to closed captioning. To make sure the interpreter is always visible, please right-click their video and select Spotlight Video. For those watching on YouTube, when we screen share, you will be able to see the slideshow, closed captioning, and the ASL interpreter. You will still be able to hear different people speaking, but may not see them. Slide, please. Now we'll go to our safety procedure. At your desk, there is a safety procedure. I'll just read it here. Our office is located on the second floor of the building, and we are currently in conference room 25B at 500 Broadway Street, Suite 200, Vancouver, Washington. In the event of an emergency, immediately call 911 to ensure that help is on the way. If you are trained and it's necessary, provide CPR, AED assistance for first aid. Equipment, including 2 first aid kits and AEDs, is available in the kitchens. There are 5 fire extinguishers located throughout the office, in the kitchen, at the coffee room, near the lockers, in conference room 4, and close to the restroom by West Stairs A. There's a map, by the way, to include in your packet. For evacuation, use the primary routes through West Stairs A and B or East Stairs. Stay calm and wait for emergency responders in a designated safe location. Familiarize yourself with these procedures and equipment locations to ensure safety for all. In the event of an evacuation, after exiting the building through West Stairs A and B or East Stairs, please proceed to the designated gathering location. This is situated at the corner of East 5th Street and East 6th Street, directly in front of the bank. Okay. Next slide, please. Just a reminder of our group agreements for us to remember to put relationships first. To keep focus on our common goal. For us to notice power dynamics, both in the virtual as well as physical room. For us to create space for multiple truths and norms. Be kind and brave. Practice examining racially biased systems and processes. A reminder that this is a learning space for everyone, that we always want to look for learning. Advisory group members will turn on cameras as you share this space together. Take care of your personal needs as they come up. Please just let me know if you do need to step away. Virtual participants can participate by taking written notes and using the raise hand and speak features for active engagement. We always remember to welcome diverse perspectives. It's okay to disagree. To remember to move up, and assume and have good intentions. With that, I'd like to welcome our program administrator, Rick Johnson, for opening remarks.
Well, good morning, everyone. Sorry I can't be in person, and I'm about close to 3,000 miles away looking after my granddaughter. So that was a higher mission. But anyway, I just want to thank everybody for their participation today. As we're coming down towards the last details and efforts for the Community Benefits Advisory Group. So we're going to have some conversation about what's next, but just want to welcome everybody. So thanks for your attendance and attention.
Great, thank you, Greg. Mariette.
Good morning, everyone. Happy spring and the last few days of March. We're looking forward to a record of decision and getting this project underway. You're missing a peach cobbler with a little Greek yogurt this morning. Sorry we couldn't have you here. Hope to see you soon in the next meeting.
Great. City of Portland representative, Deputy Administrator Donna Paul was unable to make it, but we do have Brenda Martin with the City of Portland. Brenda.
I'm back here.
Oh.
I'm sorry, I'm not sitting at the table. Thanks for having us. I'm sorry that our deputy city administrator was not able to attend today. She had a pressing last minute request. So, but we are so excited to see this come to fruition and finish our work here on the benefits advisory group. I know we're coming to the end of our voting, so we're excited to see the next steps.
Great. Thank you for being here, and feel free to join this table if you prefer. As you represent wonderful city of Portland. With that, we will open it up for our second question, which is, who is a non-family member that had a significant impact on you as a kid? And why don't we start with Josh?
Oh, all right. Hey everyone, my name is Josh Todd. I use he, him pronouns. I'm on the equity team with Spousal Strategies. I actually, Janelle and I used to work at Multnomah County together, and a story about this person was included in a book that was called When I Was 15. And her name is Glenna Sobel. She was the youth group leader at my church. And she met me right after my mom passed when I was 12, and really helped keep me off of some pretty dark pathways I could have gone down. And still in contact with her. She's in her late 90s at this point. But she was just somebody who saw me struggling and reached out, and I was able to hear her because she wasn't my family. So just an important story about how we can be an important person in a kid's life. So thanks to Glenna.
Janie Haygood, Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission, she, her pronouns. How do you pick one? So I would say teachers, and then to narrow it down is even harder. Still keep in touch with one teacher, my speech teacher / history teacher. If I go back home, I have to visit him. If I don't, I get a phone call, get Christmas letters, we write back and forth. It's wonderful. I had a teacher that believed in my writing, which I didn't really believe in my writing. And she called my parents one night and read them my writing, which was hilarious and embarrassing, but it was great to know that she believed in me. So I would say teachers. Yeah.
Well, the mayor's gonna love this. My person is Miss Irwin, who was my 8th grade algebra teacher. And she was City of Baltimore Public Schools. She was awesome. She challenged us, and she just made me, I realized that I actually was really good in math, and I probably really should have a career in that area.
Excellent. Catherine Kelly, City of Vancouver. Thematic here. I would say my 6th grade teacher, who just very similarly, with every kid in the class, I think, exposed them to their strengths and really called them out. So just very memorable and great.
And Holly, the same. Ann McInerney, mayor for the City of Vancouver. It was my high school math teacher who introduced me to these new machines called computers and how to program them and rearrange these cards that we were supposed to fill out and fill them through the machine. And it was, oh my gosh, they could do something.
Probably worth money now.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. John L. Bell, he, him pronouns, co-facilitator. I'm going to keep the theme. I would say 7th grade teacher. who just really pushed me to grow, to experience leadership, and just really believed in me. Still a dear friend to this day.
Morning, everyone. Darcy Hoffman, she, her pronouns. I'm with Workforce Southwest Washington. When you first read the prompt, I was thinking, oh my gosh, I have no idea. But yes, teachers, so many teachers. I was thinking first of a math teacher, but actually even more than that was my American Sign Language teacher in high school. I took 3 years of ASL. We had a love-hate relationship, but I would say more love. I was the student that always, on my report cards that went home, had comments from my teachers that were students talking disrupts classroom learning and student is a joy to have in class. And my mom was always like, I don't know what to do with this. But she was one of those teachers for me.
Hi everyone, Brenda Martin, I use she, her pronouns. I am the project manager for the city of Portland. I would also say teachers, but I was trying to think of a specific teacher. I think my probably 8th grade history teacher was the one who got me the most interested in both history but politics, and I ended up becoming a political science major in undergrad, and I think it came from really learning to love American history. I know it's a little tough to watch these days, but it's nice to remember how it used to function, and I really love it.
For the first question, state DOT, it's a hard one for me to identify. I didn't have a teacher in high school where I was able to do additional things and sort of move beyond the class. So I was a four with an out of four. I was a four. But it was an opportunity to sort of just do different things and have the space to explore topics of my own, which was really great. So I just recommend there's flexibility.
Eric, would you like to go?
Oh, me too. Yes, I would say my grandpa. My mom and dad didn't have time to take care of me until I was 10. So they always working, and my grandpa was the one actually raised me. He passed away a few years ago, so that's it.
Emily, we'll turn over to you for our own.
Great. So I'll go first, but I'll ask my CBAG members online to please raise your hand so that we can call on you. And then I know we've had a couple of folks join since we started, so I'll just read the prompt again. So your name, organizational affiliation, or at-large status, your pronouns if you'd like, and then who is a non-family member that had a significant impact on you as a child. And so for me, following the theme, it was my 3rd grade teacher, and she also kind of would recognize when kids maybe were going through some family things and would give them a little bit of extra help. So she would have me do some things, after class and help decorate. But also similar to what others shared, I also got a check minus on self-control on my report card because I talked too much. But instead of being punished, punishing me, she recognized I needed a challenge. So she gave me alternative assignments and had me give presentations to the class. And that's intense as an 8-year-old, but that helped me today. Now I'm here public speaking. So, all right. So I'll go to Scott and then to Farley.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Scott McCollum, he, him pronouns. I'm the superintendent at the Washington State School for the Blind. So hearing all these teachers makes me just super happy. My person was my neighbor. They were also a teacher and a tennis coach, and they weren't my teacher. They worked in another district and coached tennis in another district, but they inspired me to be a teacher. That's why I'm now a superintendent and also a lifelong tennis player. And I grew up in Minnesota, but that person, my old neighbor, actually moved to Vancouver when they retired. So they live here now. So that's really cool. Have a great day.
Thanks, Scott. We'll go to Farley and then Walter.
Morning, everybody. Farley Winters. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm an architect at LSW Architects in downtown Vancouver. The person who inspired me, so I had some really awesome coaches, but one of them really stands out. I played a number of competitive sports, but what stands out about Jerry Millsap was that it wasn't about the technical skills, it was about the soft skills. So he was really big on building team chemistry and had us do some very out of the box things like do an improv class as a softball team. And so what I remember most about my high school years with him was actually the team chemistry and not so much the hard skills that we learned on the field.
Great, thanks, Farley. We'll go to Walter and then Peter. Oh, Walter, I think you're on mute.
All right, how about that? Okay, mine's my fourth grade teacher. And during the fourth grade where I was in California, like we had to do, we learned about the missions, we learned about a lot of things. And so our teacher was really hands-on. So we had to make a model of a particular mission that we liked. And I sort of was an overachiever. So like I did the mission and I did the fields and I did the path to the thing and I did a backdrop with the mountains and I did the ocean that the mission was next to. And in some ways, thinking back about this, I sort of think that's where my love for urban planning sort of started, because I just loved seeing how the whole thing laid out. And then that taught the whole class. So now on our class, everybody's mission now had this backdrop, this foredrop, this things like that. So it was a really good. She was just an exceptional teacher.
Thanks so much, Walter. I also went to California Public Schools and made a mission. Mine was not as great as that. Okay, we'll go to Peter and then Aiden.
Good morning, everybody. Peter Fells, he, him pronouns. I represent ACE, Alliance for Community Engagement. I have to go with what Farley said, which is various coaches I had. I did a lot of different kinds of sports. I never went beyond, I guess I did a little bit in college, but it was the team building aspects of sports, winning, losing, sportsmanship, those kind of skills that one learns in doing those. And coaches were key in learning those things. So that would be what I would say.
Thanks, Peter. We'll go to Aiden and then Ryan.
Good morning, everyone. Aiden Gronauer, Assistant Director of Civil Rights and Equity for the IBR program. They, them, or he, him pronouns. I'm going to stick with the theme of teachers. I think teachers deserve all of the credit in the world and all of the money in the world as well. I had in elementary school, there was a resource teacher in our school, and she really just took me under her wing and taught me so many things, kind of showed me that compassion and love, and just kind of got me on the right path. I was having some struggles in kind of my family life. And so she just really saw that, took me under her wing, and just gave me kind of that path in life. So she deserves a lot of credit. Thank you.
Thanks, Aiden. We'll go to Ryan and then Shavana.
Ryan Winsheimer, I'm the ODOT Region 1 manager. And one of my people who taught me a lot and had an impact on my life was Senator Gordon Smith. And the reason I mention him is he was my boss for about 9.5 years. And it's a little bit different. Politics was different back then, way back then. He, as some of you might remember, really one of his mottos was working together with the other side of the aisle. He and Senator Ron Wyden used to work very closely together, and they realized how much more they could accomplish together by working across party lines, realizing party was less of a thing and more about what we're trying to achieve and how we work together, listening, compromising, and really understanding that the end goal was doing what's good for Oregon. And so I learned a lot from that about not judging someone just by party affiliation or they're a different group than me, but really listening and figuring out how to work through issues and achieve objectives together. So.
Thanks, Ryan. We'll go to Shavana and then we'll go to Vicky if you'd like.
Hey folks, Shavana McEwen. I'm the Executive Director of the Southwest Washington Equity Coalition here in Vancouver. I'm going to switch it up a little bit. And for folks who maybe have seen me in person, this might surprise you, but I grew up in Western Nebraska in ranch country. And I had a couple, the man was a World War II vet, a Pearl Harbor survivor, and his wife was a custodian at the daycare that I went to, and they were farriers. He was a blacksmith, she was a farrier. They shoot horses. And so I actually grew up, basically all my free time I spent at their place, riding horses, wrangling cows. I've got my own chaps and spurs in my attic right now. I basically grew up on the back of the horse thanks to this second family who really took me in and raised me. So yeah, I think about them a lot and miss them quite a bit. And chosen family, second family is super important for so many of us. So thank you for the opportunity to share.
Thank you. We'll go to Vicky and then Greg.
Good morning, everybody. Vicky Nakashima. I represent the Equity Advisory Committee, and I live in East Vancouver. I'm going to follow that horse theme. I love that non-traditional. And my significant thing was a pony, a Shetland pony. When I was about 6, my parents bought me a pony because I wanted a horse so bad. But the little pony was so old, it would only go down to the end of the road at the chicken farm, and then it would turn around and run back to its barn. So I could never run away. But I loved that pony, and that led to me having and showing horses all of my life. I finally retired and sold my last horse. So it had a real impact. And Greg, you're not the only one. I'm here about 10 miles outside of Silverton, Oregon, with my grandson and my grandpuppy for spring break. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Vicky. We'll go to you, Greg. But Michael, I know you just joined, so I want to give you the prompt so you can have some time to think before we return to you. So of course, your typical introduction. And then our question is, who is a non-family member that had a significant impact on you as a kid? So Greg, over to you.
You're muted.
So most of you have heard me talk about my father and the importance of my family in shaping who I am. But I also I had a 5th grade teacher who saw me, who saw something different in me and gave special assignments. So she was probably one that at that inflection point in my life made sure that I was on a great path, both life skills as well as academics. So Miss Sally Brown was her name, and she was my 5th grade teacher, and she prepared me for spelling bees. She saw that this kid can spell like nobody else, and so she did. She gave me confidence and something that I have never forgotten.
Thanks so much. We'll go to Michael and then Millicent, if you'd like to introduce yourself as well.
Hey everyone, Michael Strauss with Kimco Realty, representing the Jansen Beach Center and the small and large businesses, mostly retail businesses in our shopping center and across Hayden Island. He, him pronouns, and gosh, the prompt is a tough one. I would say one of our neighbors when I was growing up, who used to make my identical twin brother and me banana pudding birthday cakes every year, and they were awesome. And she was a wonderful person to spend time with, and really made a difference for a few years there. So thank you.
Thanks, Michael. And then we'll end with Millicent.
Good morning, everyone. Millicent Williams. I am the director of the Portland Bureau of Transportation. Pleased to be here this morning. I have a lot of folks who have had an influence on me, but one that said the greatest in my childhood was a woman named Dr. Dorothy Johnson. When I was very young, she was providing leadership to the youth missionaries of the denomination that I'm a part of. I'm a member of the AME Zion Church. And so she overcame tremendous illness and tragedy, but continued to show up positively, working hard. You could visibly see the struggles that she was faced with. She had very severe lupus, and so it just showed up in really significant ways. But she didn't allow it to stop her. And so, you know, that spirit of kind of no excuses is something that I always saw in my family, but having that as an extension and having a mentor before I knew what mentorship was and how it could impact you was just something that I remember, and her influence continues to help to guide the way that I show up. Wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Jenna.
Great, thank you, everyone. Okay, if we can get the slide deck back up. Just a reminder in terms of our agenda today, in a second, we'll receive a public comment. We'll receive a program update. Then we'll have a chance to roll up our sleeves and vote on our final tranche 4, relative to community benefits. Then we'll have an opportunity to discuss next steps. Next slide, please. Next slide. Just a reminder, if folks would like to make a verbal public comment, you'll want to dial 669-900-6833 or 408-638-0968. Please remember meeting ID 864-4769-1084, and the passcode is 385815. Please do dial *9 to raise your hand. The facilitator will call on participants to provide comment. Please also dial *6 to unmute yourself. Please provide your name and affiliation. We'll roughly have 10 minutes for public comment. If we run out of time and you have not had a chance to speak, you can still provide comments after the meeting. Next slide. To submit public comment to the advisory group, please fill out the comment form on the program website or email your comments to info@interstatebridge.org with CBAG Public Comment and the subject line. Call 360-859-0494 for Washingtonians, 503-897-9218 for Oregonians, or the toll-free number 1-888-503-6735, and state CBAG Public Comment in your message. Written comments need to explicitly say CBAG Public Comment in the subject line or in the body of the message for them to be identified and distributed to CBAG members. All written comments must be received prior to 48 hours in advance of each upcoming meeting in order to be distributed to advisory group members. Comments received after that point will be distributed to members in advance of their next meeting. Team, do we have anyone signed up for public comment?
No one at this time.
Okay, and just note for all of our CBAG members, you I do believe have a public comment that was included in your packets. With that, we will welcome Program Administrator Greg Johnson for program update. Greg?
Well, once again, good morning, everyone. And we could go to the next slide. So I want to take a little bit of program administrator's privilege to address a couple issues that are circling out there that if you follow the media, you've probably seen, and if you've read your public comment that came to you've probably seen. And generally, we take a lot of caution and don't necessarily address in meetings public comments that come into us. But I do want to take a little bit of administrative privilege to address a couple issues that are burning brightly hot for the program. So first off, there is a new group that is formed in this combination of Oregon and Washington folks who are advocating for us to build a tunnel. And for the 100th time, we have explained to folks why a tunnel does not work and why a tunnel is much more expensive than a bridge. They're comparing tunnel costs to the overall cost of the program. So I want to take some time to punch holes in these themes that we are not fairly looking at other issues that folks are concerned about. We have looked at a tunnel. It does not work at this location. And no matter how long and how hard folks say it, it does not work. So secondly, we are facing some challenges from folks who are talking about light rail. And once again, they're deeming it as the loot rail. They're calling it the crime train. They're calling it everything but what it is, which is a option to move people through this corridor. We have people who are saying, well, just build more lanes. Well, we can't just build more lanes. So I just want to tell this group, and I know you're aware of it, that our team is a team of professionals, and we take comments that come to us very seriously. We're answering every one of 9,000 plus comments that have come into us during the public comment period of the draft supplemental. So folks who are just throwing ideas, well, we should build a third bridge corridor. Well, we've looked into a third bridge corridor. It does not solve the problems that exist at this location. So if you hear frustration in my voice, it is a little bit frustrating because we've addressed these issues so often, but they keep popping up. They're like dandelions. And once again, I just wanted to let you know that our team is very serious. We are not ignoring comments that come into us. So with that, let's talk about some of the recent events and presentations that are going on. So we had our Deputy Program Administrator, Ray Mabey, did a fantastic presentation before the Oregon Joint Ways and Means Subcommittee to talk about the status of where we are with the IBR program. So that was well received. One of the members of the Joint Ways and Means Committee will be a new member to our bi-state committee. So it was good to get introduced. We had an executive steering group meeting not too long ago where the 10 partners reinforced the fact that the modified locally preferred alternative is still, they think, the best and most viable solution moving forward. So that was a very positive meeting. We are once again meeting with different groups around the region. So had a fantastic meeting with Identity Clark County, a collection of businesses that are very interested in seeing this program get built. They recognize that the future of the economic health of this region is at hand. So they are very much supportive and ready to step in and write letters of support where we need them. So we have been visiting schools. That's one of the things that we have made a priority for this program, is to reach out to that next generation who will live with these decisions that we are making for the majority of their lifetime. So we were visiting with middle school students, making sure that they understand what this bridge is. And they aren't going to understand all the technical nuances, but they will know that at some point, folks came and talked to them about their future transportation needs in this region. We've been talking to Apex. Once again, doing bridge building blocks for students to make sure that we can start training the next generation of professionals who will be sitting in meetings like this in the future, hopefully not on this same project, but folks who will be leaders in the transportation space out into the future. Had a great conversation with OBI, the Oregon Business and Industry Group. Once again, tremendously supportive of where we are taking this program. And once again, it's folks like that, Identity Clark County, who we're going to be hopeful to send messages to this administration to make sure that they understand the importance of this program to the business here regionally, and to make sure that folks understand this is how goods get to market through this corridor. Whether you're a blue state or red state, the goods that come on the Columbia River that get shipped or that come by truck on I-5, it's critically important that this corridor is viable going into the future. We also have been talking to the Northwest Native Chamber. So these are events that we think are critically important in keeping the community writ large aware of what things are going on. But I do want to talk about where we're at program-wise, and I don't think I have another slide. So let me see if I have another slide. So the program is in an important phase. We got through the draft supplemental, as you know. We've talked to you about that before. We are now in the final supplemental environmental impact statement process. So we are working with our federal partners to get our first administrative draft to them, and that will come out in about a week and a half. And that's going to be an important step to staying on our schedule that we have prescribed. So we're hoping to get that final document, the final supplemental, done late this year. Then we're hoping for a record of decision early in 2026, and that record of decision will allow us to go into construction. So during the next steps process, we're going to talk about the work that this group has done and how that fits into the big picture of where this program is going and the commitments that we have made to community benefits. So with that, I'll stop and take any questions that this group may have.
Yes, Holly.
So does the record of decision not coming till the beginning of 2026? I'm assuming that means there can't be any construction started that winter, or is that wrong?
We are going to seek to get construction started. We're hoping for the Big River Bridge. We're hoping to get a contractor on board and start that process as soon as we get that record of decision that allows us to start spending construction dollars. But I think it's important for us to get a shovel in the ground so we can start showing progress and start building confidence that this program is going to get built. Currently, we have committed funds of over $5.5 billion towards the construction. So we're hoping that we can do some projects, early works projects that will complement the bridge getting started. So you may see things such as the Evergreen Bridge possibly getting pulled forward into the program. You'll see some utility relocation work, things of that nature. You'll start seeing us buying right-of-way. So all of those activities are contingent upon getting a record of decision. So we're still hoping that you will see golden shovels in the ground in early 2026.
There questions, comments for Greg? Okay, thank you, Greg.
All right.
All right, well, now Emily, I'm gonna turn over to you to walk us all through the big element of our meeting, which is structure.
Sounds good. Yes, thank you very much. And actually, I wanted to turn it back over to you, Greg, briefly, because I understand you wanted to set a little bit of framing here for just kind of the work this group has done and give a little bit of a preview of what we can expect for next steps. So Greg, I'll welcome you back to just share a couple of thoughts here.
Eric, if you could make sure Steve who's talking, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for the invite back. So this group has been meeting for just about a year and a half and has done some fantastic things in setting the groundwork for what will be the commitments to the community that the IBR will undertake and fulfill. So the plan is to get all of these recommendations and get them vetted through both the equity and the community advisory group, and then have them taken up to the executive steering group for finalization. But one of the things that we know is that the community benefits advisory group was meant to have a sunset date, and we're coming upon that fairly quickly. But the work that you have done does not get lost in the bureaucracy. What will happen is we will start bringing the other groups together and hopefully start the process of creating what's next, who will represent the community throughout construction to ensure that all of these commitments are met. So we're very excited about what the next steps for this program. Some of the things that you guys have identified for us for community benefits are already in the process. We've talked about the grant for the community connector in the city of Vancouver. That was one of the things that was early on identified as a community benefit. So things like that. We are also preparing for some of the workforce issues that you have identified as key critical. So all of those things are starting to take shape in the form of actions that the IBR program will step through and start implementing as we are moving towards getting into the construction phase. But once again, we are going to have serious conversations about what advisory groups will look like during the construction phase. Will there be one? Will there still be multiples? So all of those things are still being talked about, but we'd love to have your thoughts and your views on these type of conversations as we move forward. So we still have a lot of folks who are interested in transitioning from the planning phase to actually being on an advisory group during the construction phase. So we're going to be soliciting those folks who are still interested, and then bringing on new folks to fill roles. So love to engage this group with conversation around those thoughts and ideas.
Great, thank you, Greg, for that context.
Right. Yeah, thank you. If we could get the slides pulled back up. And building off of what Greg just shared, we just also want to take a minute to appreciate all of the great work that all of you have done. We've gone through quite a thoughtful and significant process, and it's been really meaningful. And so we just want to appreciate all this group has accomplished as we're heading into our last confirmation here. And then, of course, at the end, I'll give a little bit of a highlight of what we can expect for the next steps here after our recommendations are confirmed. So if we could please move to the next slide. Great. So we just wanted to give a little bit of a reminder of all the work that this group has done and kind of where we started. So back in September of 2023, we did some initial brainstorming and that high level visioning of what we would like to see in the community in the future, and use that as kind of our initial guiding thoughts there. And then January and February, we worked through that of 2024. We worked through that first tranche of recommendations that were time sensitive at the time, and we did our first confirmation there. And then after that, we from March through August of 2024, we did our more in-depth brainstorming by category. Again, we had our breakout groups. We had some really great conversations, and folks were building off of each other and really formulating this great list that we have now. And then from there, we in September 2024 through this last month's meeting, we were doing our refinement. We were digging in, asking the hard questions, looking at different considerations and contexts for ways that we could make sure that these recommendations, made the most sense and would really be something tangible and something that the program could take and do some real meaningful action with. So again, really appreciate this group leaning in and going through this process with us. So the next slide, please. Great. So just an overview of how this will go today is a refresher from our previous confirmation meetings. So I will go through the updated recommendations. We'll show you the red line edit so you can see the changes that were made based on your feedback and the review refine sessions. So I will read through all of them. And then once we get through all of that, we'll open it up to see if there are any additional thoughts or pieces that folks might want to make some adjustments to. We will share a document that will have all of the finalized, a clean copy of the language so that you can see what exactly we'd be voting on. And then I'm going to have my team member Josh help with our live editing like we did last time, so make sure that you all can see exactly what changes we're making. We'll take a little bit of a break so we can finalize that, and then we'll come back and move through our FIST to 5 confirmation. And just a reminder there, we appreciate everybody's input that's here today, but just a refresher that all of the voting is limited to CBAG members themselves. Next slide, please. Great. So with that, here are our updates to the language based on our review refine conversations with you all. So starting with mobility and accessibility, number 17, involve experts with lived experience and representatives of the broader community in transportation planning to ensure that designs effectively address the mobility and accessibility needs of various groups beyond minimum, that should be ADA standards, especially individuals with disabilities, low-income individuals, and communities of color. And you'll see that these additions here in red were based on the recommendations that you all gave in that review refine session. Number 18, implement periodic reviews and revisions to the infrastructure plans post-construction to ensure they continuously meet community needs and adapt based on practical use and feedback through re-engagement individuals with disabilities and underserved communities. So again, we added this piece at the end. We heard that folks wanted to make sure there was a loop back and some of that re-engagement. That's really critical. Number 25, a note that it had been incorporated into another recommendation that you can find on your complete list, but that is mobility and accessibility number 8. And this was the piece around safety metrics and signage. Next slide, please. Great. Again, this PD 14 was integrated into number 11. And again, this is that piece around making sure that there's some consistency in design and that folks have kind of that buy-in early in the process. And then number 16 was to incorporate educational information related to ecosystem health, cultural heritage, and local vegetation with considerations for long-term maintenance and accessibility for plant markers and signage. So reflecting those conversations we had about expanding it a little bit to not just be restricted to the plant information itself, and also making sure that there are those considerations for accessibility. Number 19, consider ecological impacts when developing lighting designs, including considerations for mitigation of impacts on migratory birds and other wildlife. Again, reflecting that conversation we had about wanting to be really explicit about the pieces that we're wanting to mitigate and the considerations for wildlife. Number 20 was integrated into mobility and accessibility 15. This was the for the garbage cans, and we felt that that really fit into that specific recommendation that had to do with the overall shared use path and the upkeep, future maintenance, those pieces. So it fit well into that consideration. Next slide, please. All right. So for community benefit number 6, provide online access to 3D models of the program to aid in visual understanding of the design. And then number 7 is the one where we combined a few different of the recommendations in our last session that we felt were some of the ones that were really community value driven and were important to capture and make sure that the program, considers them, but also in recognition that it is outside of the scope of what departments of transportation and other agencies are really able to impact or in the scope of what they can do. So we shifted this language to really change it to supporting those efforts. So it reads, to the greatest extent possible, the IBR program should actively support local government and community efforts, both during and after construction, related to affordable housing, equitable transit-oriented development, community development efforts, including childcare access. Next slide, please. All right, and then these reflect the specific individual ones that we, most of these that we incorporated into that last one that I just read. So these ideas around affordable housing, the transit-oriented development, and some of those community development pieces. And then I believe we have number 11, which is support local efforts to improve and maintain the East Delta Dog Park between MLK and North Union Court to ensure it can be used year-round. Next slide, please. All right, so with that, I'm going to ask Fabian if you could please pull up our Word document. We know that with all of those red line edits, with some that have been folded into others, it might be hard to track which ones now that we're actually voting on. So I'm going to have Fabian pull up this Word document with a clean copy so that you can all see. And in the meantime, I want to share a little bit of feedback that we did get from the Community Advisory Group and the Equity Advisory Group. As Administrator Johnson mentioned, we wanted to, follow the process we have been, make sure that we're getting their input. And so we did get feedback from them on a couple. And for the most part, the feedback was overall supportive of these recommendations. There were a couple of notes around really in alignment with the shift we made in that recommendation about supporting the community development and affordable housing. There was recognition that it's not possible for the IBR program to solve all community issues, and that the most important thing is really ensuring that the elements are not oppositional to community goals. So that feedback was really in alignment with all of your conversations.
Okay, Emily, we've got Marianne with.
Emily, quick questions. CB6, when were we going to have those 3D models online?
I would like to phone a friend for that and see if somebody else could help with that. I do believe it was around the potentially around the record of decision, but there's others that might have a more precise answer.
So I think that would probably be the appropriate time once we have nailed down the essentials of what we're building. To create 3D models would then be an appropriate time. So I would say that's something that will probably take place during calendar year 2026.
So Greg, before the rod or after the rod?
This would be after the rod.
Okay.
All right. So now is where we want to open up discussion. We've read through the edits. We've got kind of our clean copy of the language here, and we want to open up discussion if folks have any kind of final adjustments that you'd like to see. Our team member Josh is ready to make some live edits here. So I'll open it up to folks.
And maybe just in the interest of time, why don't we just do one at a time here?
Sure.
I think would be the best approach.
Great.
So let's start off with MA 17. Any thoughts, comments, questions on? And what you're seeing on the screen here is reflective of the edits that were made at our last meeting. Staff has taken a first crack at trying to consolidate that. So that's what you're seeing here. Yes, Jane.
So just noting, our document that we have is different than what's up there. So it is missing between broader community to ensure. Ours says broader community to ensure rather than broader community in transportation planning. So just making that note.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let's make sure we capture that so that what you're seeing is actually reflective of the edits. So 1 second while the team actually makes red line this version here.
And we actually did, I think it's just in the handout, doesn't have those words, but in the red line edits we showed on the slides, we do have that community in transportation planning. So I think that could be a point of discussion if folks would prefer that were removed, or if we want to keep that.
It feels like in MA 17 and MA 18, the last line, when we're talking about the various communities that we want to engage or re-engage, maybe we should shore those up and list them the same way. I don't have a strong opinion on which way they're listed, but maybe just some consistency.
Recommendation in terms of how that might.
No, I mean, I think the MA 17 may be best. Seems more inclusive of that.
Low income individuals and communities of color.
People with disabilities.
Okay, so consistency between 17 and 18 in terms of how communities being. Why don't we know this is always fun, but why don't we let the edits occur and make sure we concurrence, and then we'll go to the next. Is that okay? Okay. No questions on this. There's a reason why you're doing it, and I'm not. But you guys, because Greg, I was not winning spelling bees, let me tell you, so.
Well, it's definitely impossible to spell in public.
Yeah.
Greg, I see your hand. Go ahead.
So my question on 17 and 18, and this is for, I mean, I like the thoughts behind it, but is the group envisioning that this will be taken care of through a future advisory group? Or are you guys looking for something above and beyond that? So I just wanted to get a better understanding of what you're looking for, and could it be through advisory groups where we have folks with the lived experience representing those various communities?
Mary Ann.
Greg, are you thinking an advisory group is different than the bridge authority?
mean, different than IBR?
In previous discussions, there has always been a conversation about a continuing bridge authority as oversight on this bridge. Would the bridge advisory be advising the bridge authority?
So a bridge authority is something that would have to be created by both governors and the legislature. And at this point, I've not seen that brought up I've seen it brought up earlier on, but I have not seen any action in moving that way. But I think having a group together that spans beyond the life of this bridge or the life of the construction of this bridge that could advise would be something that could be very positive in making sure some of these longer term issues are taken care of. IBR, like some of the current advisory groups, will sunset at the end of construction. So, but having a group that is concerned about the bridge, and it happens with large bridges in other areas where folks do create groups that provide advice to what the bridge looks like in the future, what the maintenance efforts, all of those things. So I think that is a possibility. I don't know if there will be a formal authority created.
Who do they advise?
I think they would advise the DOTs as the owners of the structure.
Okay, thank you.
I guess it's an interesting thing that there's a couple pieces of this. There's like the idea of, is there like a post-construction, like we'll talk about punch lists in construction, right? Like, did everything kind of come out as anticipated? I know we did a walkthrough with City of Vancouver on Mill Plain to sort of look at how that couplet stuff, and there was some like developer stuff that had to be fixed. Holly, I think you were on that. So I think there's this interesting space about like sort of cross-checking, did things get implemented in the way intended? And so that's sort of like a closeout conversation. At some point, this really does transition into, I think, the relationship with the DOTs generally, and whether or not that's actually like an ongoing advisory group or not, I think is an open question. That starts to roll into the space of just how do we maintain that given sort of the relationships we have, like looking at the relationships we have right now, and the contract we have right now for relating, you know, working with the cities or others, and community. It's an interesting space, the idea of having sort of ongoing advisory group for this in perpetuity is sort of an open question that feels complicated as an in perpetuity item. I do get this idea of having kind of a good, more community-based closeout kind of review or other things, which I think really valuable in that. I don't know, I'm speaking a little bit out of turn, but I guess Greg or Ryan, if you have any thoughts about that. And the authority thing definitely reads to us as a very specific legal construct, and so that's the commentary you got back, and oftentimes would, in addition to other things, would arguably set up a separate institution that needs kind of funding or support or other things, and I think that's that feels like an additional burden, a question about where do you find responsible parties to ask your question of, and it just feels particularly complicated generally. So that's the authority thing rings to us as very legal construct.
Emily, online, we've got some
Yes, we've got Peter.
Yeah, thank you. I think there's an elephant in the room, which is using the term communities of color. It could create problems with our federal partners, the way things are going in the current administration, and we might be better using the underserved communities term so that we don't get kicked out of any federal funding.
Well, So that's a great catch. We are currently having conversation with our federal partners about the language that appears in our EIS document, our supplemental EIS. So we're hoping to get guidance from our federal partners as to what is acceptable with them bringing federal dollars to the table. So that is a active question that is being talked about as we speak.
Any other thoughts on 17 and 18?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh.
So just to get back to the question about sort of subsequent community advisories, because this is a really long-term project, as we all know, and things change for whole lots of reasons. So it sounded like what I heard from Greg earlier is that there was going to be sort of throughout the project ongoing community advisory. Did I misunderstand? Did I not catch that correctly?
Yeah, no, yeah, I think you got that right.
Greg, do you want to clarify or offer commentary to all these
Yeah.
questions?
So right now, that's the thought, that we will consolidate some of the groups into one advisory group that will exist throughout the construction to make sure that all of these elements and commitments are carried through on. So we haven't finalized what that looks like. And once again, we're going to be talking to all of the advisory groups, including this group, to talk about what that group looks like going into the future. Is it bigger? Is it smaller? And to the question of, does that potentially become a group that lives beyond the construction and starts advising on, are things that were promised, are they being kept up during the maintenance phase of some of these elements? So yeah, we do plan on having a advisory group carried on through the construction. And once again, if it's the will of the partners, maybe it goes beyond.
That does, number 18 does say post-construction.
So it would be the responsibility of this advisory group to impart to 17, 18. Emily, I see we've got.
Yes. Yes, we've got Farley and then Vicky.
Yeah, I think the question about how the advisory committee interfaces during continued design and construction is a great one. And with stakeholder engagement that I'm familiar with, there's kind of a report back period. So the advisory group is able to see more detailed designs than what we've seen so far to ensure that the requests that the advisory group has made are being met. And if they're not, that there's some understanding of why they're not being met. And so then the advisory group is able to communicate that to the broader audience of the public, and offer some, we're resources in providing explanation as to this is why things are happening this way and not this way. And I think so far the design is at a very high level, or what's been communicated to the public and this group has been at a really high level, and nowhere near specific enough to see that the intentions that we're setting here are being met or not being met. And so I'd really be in favor of us having an advisory committee during design, and have access to more of it, like be more visible about what how the design's progressing. Because at this stage, it's really hard for us to know, how are we serving individuals with disabilities or low-income individuals? Because those resources just aren't there yet. They're not available.
Great, thank you. And we'll go to Vicky.
I would like to recommend that last line be changed to include, before low-income individuals, include communities of color, underserved. And I object to taking out communities of color.
Thanks, Vicky. Any thoughts here on this new recommendation?
Emily, can I just check understanding? So Vicky, are you asking that I would read individuals with disabilities, communities of color, low-income individuals, and underserved communities?
Yes.
More inclusive across the board.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I think I realize the risk of USDOT taking money away, but I think that now is not the time to say that isn't a priority. It's been a priority for IBR from the beginning, and if they direct that that's not a priority, then I think it's up to the steering committee or the DOTs or the legislatures to say whether that's an accommodation they'll make in order to get that funding.
Great. Have Millicent and then Brian.
Thank you. This is going to be a kind of a tightrope that we're all going to be walking as we prepare to move into the future. I think it's important for the language that's in any of the documents, any of the agreements, any of the project plans, make clear the intention. But what from an entity that is also responsible for trying to navigate, a different entity trying to navigate the language that we should use as it relates to our federal partners, the call out is valid. You know, they could say, you say this word, the funding is pulled, period, no question. The thing that I believe is most important in this effort is that we actually do what we say we're going to do. And so that is what should be clearly articulated in the agreements, the documents, the project plans, all of that, so that it is undoubted by those who may read it or be the ultimate recipients of the support services project benefits, makes it clear without necessarily being as explicit as we might like to be, because we recognize that that may make it easier for people to know that they're being identified, but it could make it harder for the program to realize the benefits that are intended. That's just a very, very real caution. And speaking as and this is not, I'm not speaking for the city, I'm speaking as a Black woman. Things happen in the Black community, for the Black community often, and you don't have to say, and for the Black community, we are doing so and so. Issue is do it. Don't tell me that you're doing it and put the title there, but move forward with intentionality around doing it. So that's both a practical point and then an anecdotal one based on my lived experience. The other piece is that there is sensitivity, however, if we are going to talk about communities of color, that we are careful and call them out specifically, that we're careful about bundling underserved, disadvantaged, and communities of color in one fell swoop, because they are not one thing. And I think that that is an important distinction that we can work to make. So I just wanted to posit that for people's consideration.
Thank you. We'll go to Ryan and then Shavana.
Thank you, Millicent, for your comments, and I'm gonna boldly speak for Washington State as well, Carly. When I say I hope everyone on this call and everyone beyond that in talking about this understands and appreciates that when you see a strike through of a word on one of these documents, it is not because the states have changed our intentions around supporting many of the values that you see and attach to those. It is because of the practicality of the kinds of things that Millicent mentioned. There is a very real thing around making sure that the funding shows up, and it doesn't mean that we're going to change the way that we implement the values that we've described that are important to us that we have been talking about in this group. So I just want to first say that and be really clear about it. The second thing, and this is speaking for myself again, I'm alone now, but my door is always open. When I see things like MA 18 talking about certain groups that we can meet with and hear about, I expect all of those groups to continually be reaching out to me and talking about issues that they may see, things that they might like to see improved after construction and well on into the future. And I think having a conversation between the city of Portland, the city of Vancouver, Washington State, ODOT, and how we manage the facility, we manage our connections, we make the all of those things work well together into the future for not just the communities listed, but the entire communities that we serve is going to be important moving on into the future. And so if the group feels having a advisory committee is useful, I think that's fine. I also want just to be clear that without that, my door is also going to be open, and that I have this on many things all across the region that people come and talk about improvements they would like to see and changes they would like to see, and whether it's maintenance or it's a capital improvement. And I always expect to have those conversations, and I'm always willing to work with local governments and communities to make things better. So I just wanted to put that on the record.
Thanks so much, Ryan. We'll go to Shivana.
Yeah, I mostly thank you for the opportunity. I mostly just wanted to really underscore Farley's comments around the need for continued community engagement. The whole point of a community benefits advisory group is one is to advise, but two is to support implementation and be that bridge for accountability. If we don't do that, we know where good intentions take us, right? And so I think we can all agree, everybody in here has the best intentions, and like we've seen, administrations change, priorities change, values sometimes change, and so to be able to be accountable to community over a long-term, multi-year, decade-long project means we have to continue to engage with community throughout that entire time. Also, really want to appreciate Millicent, your vulnerability and sharing. And I want to just underscore for folks as well. I think it's true, we often hear that we don't want compulsory compliance. And so maybe we don't want to remove communities of color simply to remove communities of color. And at the same time, I think something that has not been said, at least in meetings that I've been at, we do have a phenomenal, and I think this might be the first time I've publicly acknowledged this, so I'm sorry that it's taken so long, but Director Johnson, Millicent, we've had a number of folks on this project working directly with IBR, DOT, City of Portland, City of Vancouver, who are incredible leaders of color. So for us to talk about equity and especially racial justice and how do we make these decisions and advise on those decisions and not also pause and reflect on the personal impact that the leaders of color who are staff and elected officials, what they're carrying at the same time as they're making these decisions. I think it would serve all of us well to be able to think about, who those folks are and the decisions that they're having to make, and to listen and appreciate with gratitude what they may be dealing with and facing. And that goes to for the consulting team as well. I mean, everybody on the IBR project who is advocating for racial justice and is themselves a person of color and trying to navigate all of this. So just want to say thank you to those of you in those situations.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate the discussion. I think this really sets us up well for, for confirming these and, that we're all on the same page here. So before we move on to the next one.
We've got
sorry.
the mayor. And then Jamie.
Yesterday, I saw a list of all the words that we need to scrub from all of our grants. DEI, racial equity, greenhouse gas, emissions, climate change were the ones I remembered. Communities of color wasn't on the list, underserved communities was not on the list. I suggest we leave them in.
Jamie?
I'm just wondering if we should add in a statement in there just saying that for MA 17 and MA 18, that it would be under the discretion or review of an advisory group during design, construction, and post-construction. Should that be called out?
Should you capture that?
I'm looking at where to plug it in, yes.
Maybe it's an asterisk.
That's how I even drew it online, is an asterisk.
Okay, we'll work on that. Let's go to the next ones here. Emily.
Sounds good. All right. So our next one reads, and as Josh makes that note, I can read it out to us. So it's physical design 16, and that is to incorporate educational information related to ecosystem health, cultural heritage, and local vegetation with considerations for long-term maintenance and accessibility for plant markers and signage.
And then we can see that on the screen here.
Yeah, 1 second. There we go. Oh, I'm not the one sharing screen. Never mind.
Team who is controlling the screen, please look at the next.
Fabian. Thank you. Thanks, folks, for your patience with us. All right. So PD 16, I just read that out. Do folks have any thoughts or any kind of last adjustments that you'd like to recommend for PD 16?
Again, as a reminder, this is representative of edits that you all made at last. A lot of conversation on this one in particular. Hearing none.
Pete, we got Peter here.
Yeah, thanks. I'm just a little confused about where the plant markers and signage goes in this sentence. Are we talking about maintaining and having access to the plant markers and signage? Or exactly, it just, maybe my coffee hasn't kicked in yet, but I can't quite figure out what.
Yeah,
where how it goes together.
Sure, I can speak to that a little bit. So originally, this one was related to having the educational information about the plants, and then folks talked about, well, what if we have some of these signage and these educational materials, we could include ecosystem health and cultural heritage, but then we also wanted to have considerations for folks around accessibility, so being able to read the signs and having kind of some alternatives there. And then also there was the question around the maintenance of the signs and kind of who would be responsible for maintaining those long term. So we just wanted to make sure that that is incorporated here so that those are considerations of these getting put in.
Does that clarify for you, Peter?
I'm still somewhat confused, but I'm sure there must be a cleaner way to say it, but I'm not sure exactly how.
We got Josh.
Just from a grammatical standpoint, it might be easier to understand if it was maintenance of accessibility of instead of for.
Yeah, you want to try that?
That helps.
You're the English teacher right there.
No, I'm not. No. It's Jamie.
Oh,
Jamie
yeah.
has got it.
So this is when we're gonna phone our teachers, Does that clarify it?
That helps me. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And Siobhan, I just want to make sure, is that a new hand or from before? Just want to make sure I don't miss you. Okay, great.
Great. Okay.
Awesome.
No other, it's gonna be 19.
Great. So the next one is to consider ecological impacts when developing lighting designs, including considerations for mitigation of impacts on migratory birds and other wildlife. And this again was one we had a pretty robust conversation around about kind of design standards, what those look like, the different impacts here. So.
Okay. Seeing head nods here. All
All
right.
right, great. So CB6, provide online access to 3D models of the program to aid in visual understanding of the design.
Greg, I'm gonna come back to this one if I might. Do you think the signers of the ROD are gonna wanna see the 3D models before they sign it?
Greg, I think you're on mute. Okay.
You caught me mid-bite of my lunch.
Oh, sorry. Let me ask it again. Do you think the signers of the ROD are gonna wanna see the 3D models before they sign it?
I think the time it's going to take to, once we get to the ROD that determines what we're building, get a designer, a design builder on board, those are going to be things that are going to determine what this final product is going to look like, at least for the bridge. And so doing something earlier than that may be meaningless, because if we get a design builder on board with a different idea for bridge type or aesthetic treatments, and we may build a model that has no relevance to what's going to get actually built.
Okay.
Interesting. Good to know. Any other thoughts? All right, Emily.
Great. All right. CB7, to the greatest extent possible, the IBR program should actively support local government community efforts, both during and after construction, related to affordable housing, equitable transit-oriented development, community development efforts, including childcare access. And so again, we added in your thoughts around making sure it explicitly said during and after construction, and that we had our bulleted list here.
That's a good question for Greg. Greg, will there be IBR after construction?
After construction, IBR will cease to exist, and the responsibilities will go back to the individual DOTs. So the DOTs at that time can choose to implement other support items depending on their wishes and the wishes of the community at the time.
Does that work for you, Mayor?
Yeah.
Okay.
Carly, does that work for you?
I mean, we can try to make it work.
But that's not what that says. It says you should actively support us.
It's I think the interesting thing is like, what does that actually mean? And I think I would say that we try to already do that within our means, which is its own realistic, unfortunate at times constraint. But yeah, I think it speaks to hopefully the good working relationship that we have. I mean, I appreciate that.
Do you? Because I think this puts a lot of pressure on the DOTs. And I mean, this is not realistic. To the greatest extent possible, you're going to actively support.
I mean, so to the greatest extent possible, one is gonna be bound by funding. And I think the other question is like, what roles do we have around those items really at all? So what we see right now is, folks who wanna go seeking, an example right now, some congressionally directed spending associated with like housing, whatever, and they came to us and asked for sort of generic support letter. And so we'll, do those things within our zone. But that's, I just don't, there's like a whole host of things here that like really aren't our, aren't our capacity. And so it's like the things that, the other things that we have here is the space of if and when we're getting rid of a parcel, does it have, abutters have some kind of primacy in that opportunity to procure that as we're getting rid of it. We can extend to local jurisdictions an opportunity to start on that before. So there's like that kind of stuff, but that's, I think there's just the reality of like what our funding and what our zone is in is like, those are examples of things that if I think about active support, that stuff that we're doing right now is pretty limited in scope, but that's what I think of.
Other thoughts, comments on this one?
We've got a hand online here, Shavana.
Is the question at hand whether we should keep CB7 or delete CB7?
I think what's really, and if they're correct me if I'm wrong, around can the dots actually implement this? So there was some commentary back and forth.
Thank you for the clarification. I think that this actually, the way that it's worded, it's really important to keep it, and especially to keep it the way that it's worded. I think it was hard to hear the speaker before me, but I do think that the crux of this statement is to the greatest extent possible. And it may be that communities will say, well, DOT needs to do so much more, but the fact is DOT maybe is not able to do that. But keeping this goal, keeping this priority indicates to me that the community believes that these are important values for the DOT to support. And it also indicates to me that the DOT agrees and will support to whatever extent they are able. So it doesn't really do much in terms of detailing that extent, but it does indicate that both parties, the community and DOT, are agreeable to supporting things like affordable housing, equitable TOD, and community development.
And maybe Shavana, I'll try to speak up a little bit more because I think I was the speaker before you. So can you hear me better right now?
I can now, yeah, thank you.
Okay, I think your point is the point that we were sort of discussing in the room. So thank you for noting it wasn't clear. And that some of that to the greatest extent possible is about our lane and what we should sort of be dabbling in, like at all. And it's also in a space of potential financial constraint around those things. But there are ways in which we do like affordable housing, transit-oriented development. We provide the way for people to move around, and land use is a critical factor in that. We don't have a lot of space that we can play, and quite frankly, in Washington state, concurrency actually doesn't help with that because the state system is held outside of that. But we do try to speak to that when we can. So I think with everyone recognizing that to the greatest extent possible does have constraints and does have framework around it, I think that's really useful because it really does. But those things they're important because sending people to the outskirts for affordable housing just makes everything worse. And so to the extent that we can help with that, we want to, just don't have a lot of teeth.
See, Peter?
Yeah, thanks. To me, the important thing is that if we can provide some relocation funding for people who are now using the DOT right of way for housing, houseless people, IBR doesn't necessarily have to be building affordable housing, but we should be supporting the community efforts for housing those folks. And so that's what I'm expecting out of this this comment.
Emily, are there other comments online?
No, I'm not seeing any. And Peter, just want to note too, we do have a recommendation that that we voted on that speaks specifically to working with local service providers for the relocation and for those who are experiencing homelessness who may be impacted. So just want to assure you that we do have one that specifically speaks to that too.
Yeah, thank you. I wasn't sure that whether that was still there or that got absorbed into this, so that
Yeah.
helped.
Thanks. And I see Greg.
So Peter, I want to make sure I understand what I just heard. People who are living in the right of way, that we would provide funding to relocate them. That is a very loaded issue that the DOTs, as Carly stated earlier, we have a lane that we stay in. We are transportation. We are not housing experts. We will contact folks who do have that as their mission, but I don't think you're going to see DOT saying, yeah, we're going to give, hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars to take folks who live in the right of way, which they're there by federal statute illegally, and say, we're going to take money and give to relocate those folks. That is just not a reality of the DOT world.
Well, can I respond?
Oh, go ahead. I just want to set some expectations and not have folks coming at this with the expectation that DOTs are gonna take their money that's meant for transportation and move people and relocate them and pay for that. So go ahead.
Yeah, so if people were legally in the right of way, there are federal and state requirements for relocation. And I understand that somebody who's trespassing or camping on DOT land doesn't fit within the definition of what's required for relocation. But unfortunately, there are a lot of people who are using DOT land right now. And once construction begins, I assume that the contractors are going to want to have those people removed for safety reasons. And if they're just simply told to go elsewhere, they're going to end up in the community, and then the communities are going to have to deal with them. And so to the extent that IBR can assist financially or in some other ways to ease the burden on the local communities that will result from construction, I think that's what I'm asking for.
And once again, and I can't speak for Carly and Ryan, but I am unaware of a DOT, and this is 42 years of experience speaking, where a DOT has funded that type of activity. Maybe they will. I don't know, but I have not seen it.
Yeah, Carly, is gonna weigh in here.
Yeah, so hopefully I'm speaking loud enough so folks can hear. The idea, and I think part of this question is the idea sort of direct dispensing of funds to those individuals versus how do we support relocation and coordination and other things. We have other examples from within Washington State where we've had large projects that do need to clear right of way. We have specific approaches to how we do that with, regular offers of services, with trying to make sure that there is space available for folks so that we are not offering beds that don't exist. And so that is a critical factor. And I would say on a program like this, where we do have locations that there are kind of persistent folks camping in right of way that we need to navigate, that will be a very close coordination, both with service providers, also with the city of Vancouver for sure. Oregon, I think the relationship between ODOT and the city of Portland is a little bit different, but I would anticipate a sort of comprehensive game plan for this program to navigate that over time and provide resource opportunities. The other delicate dance with this is you can offer individuals services and the opportunity to opt in to a safe stay or other things. I think the city's been doing a good job of working to channel people into those resources. Some folks, it takes multiple asks and discussions to have them choose to opt into those. So there is a way in which I don't want to sugarcoat it and not recognize that some folks in that may move else, they may go into the community elsewhere. That is a reality. That's not something that we are aiming for, but I would anticipate this sort of comprehensive game plan, specific, assumptions about offering resources and regular contact with folks. And so a really targeted effort to make sure that we are doing that in a way that recognizes the challenge and the humanity in every person who's living in our right of way. That's, we already do this kind of partnership, I know, with City of Vancouver on this side. But I would anticipate there will be sort of a comprehensive thing that tries to map all that out.
Thank you, Carly. Emily?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of remind folks that we do have Avoid Further Harm 21. We voted on in November, and it does speak to exactly what Carly was just saying, where it talks about exploring partnership and working with programs that provide some of these culturally specific services and are really the experts in the outreach and helping these folks. So just wanted to assure folks we do have a recommendation that speaks to that.
Let's go to CB11.
All right. And so for our final one here, we have support local efforts to improve and maintain the East Delta Dog Park between MLK and North Union Court to ensure it can be used year round.
Thoughts, comments? By the way, the mayor made a dish with peaches. What is it called, Mayor? It's called?
But it has a Greek yogurt topping. There's your protein.
Okay. So by the way, I've been thinking about this whole meeting. I've been trying to figure out how to go over there. So, okay, hearing none here. Any online for CD11?
Not seeing any online.
All right, so let's, do we need time? Nope, I think we're ready to go ahead and move into voting here. Why don't we, let me pose this question. Are folks comfortable voting, or Emily, remind me, are we voting on all of them at once, or are we taking one at a time? All at once?
Yeah, we typically do it all at once. So we can just read them all out with the most updated language, and then we'll hold a vote at the end.
Okay, so if we can pull up the slide, just to remind folks to Fist of Five, what it all means. We've been doing this for a while. The fist is no way. Sorry, my eyesight's not as great as it used to be. One finger, hold on, we need to talk about this. Two, I have reservations, but I could be convinced. Three, I guess I'm okay with it. Four, sounds good. Five, love it. Okay, let's read the clean versions and then we'll go for a vote.
Sounds good. Thanks for the switching back and forth, Fabian.
We gotta get them on the screen there. Fabian will want to get that Word doc back on the screen.
Great. All right. So I'm just going to read all of them through and then we'll have our vote. So starting with MA 17, involve experts with lived experience and representatives of the broader community in transportation planning, then asterisk, that advisory group to operate during design, construction, and post-construction periods. And that will be to ensure that, oh, sorry, Fabian, please. Okay, to ensure that designs effectively address the mobility and accessibility needs of various groups beyond minimum ADA standards, especially individuals with disabilities, communities of color, low-income individuals, and underserved communities. MA 18, implement periodic reviews and revisions to the infrastructure plans post-construction to ensure they continuously meet community needs and adapt based on practical use and feedback through re-engagement with individuals with disabilities, communities of color, low-income individuals, and underserved communities, with again the asterisk that the advisory group to operate during design, construction, and post-construction periods. Please scroll down. All right, PD 16, incorporate educational information related to ecosystem health, cultural heritage, and local vegetation with considerations for long-term maintenance and accessibility of plant markers and signage. PD 19, consider ecological impacts when developing lighting designs, including considerations for mitigation of impacts on migratory birds and other wildlife. CB 6, provide online access to 3D models of the program to aid in visual understanding of the design. CB 7, to the greatest extent possible, the IBR program and subsequent DOT owners should actively support local government and community efforts both during and after construction related to affordable housing, equitable transit-oriented development, community development efforts, including childcare access. Scroll down, please. And then CB 11, support local efforts to improve and maintain the East Delta Dog Park between MLK and North Union Court to ensure it can be used year-round. So with that, can we pull down the slides so we can do our vote?
Okay, with that, hope folks have their hands all warmed up here. So we'll vote now. If you could indicate by your fist to 5 right now. Okay. Seeing all votes here, Emily. Signify moving forward.
Yes. Got them all here online.
Okay. Terrific. Nice job, team. Great job, everyone. I think that concludes our last voting item. So with that, why don't we move to the close of the meeting here.
And John, I have just a quick piece about next steps. All right. So just a couple of points to reinforce some of what Greg had shared about our next steps. So once the recommendations are complete now, the IBR program in collaboration with the DOTs will take recommendations through an analysis and a sort of screening process to help understand which recommendations can move forward, and then to be able to provide reasoning if others may not be able to move forward. So our goal in all of this is to ensure that we thoroughly consider the recommendations based on a number of factors, including many that we've been talking about all along throughout the refinement process. So things like alignment with standard practices, priorities of this group and the other advisory group, potential funding sources, et cetera. So once it is determined which recommendations can move forward, we will plan a report out to the executive steering group on which were accepted and what the plans for implementation would be. But as we think of our future work, again, we expect that there will be some sort of future advisor group that will also help with the tracking and progress, like Greg was speaking to. But I just want to mention that we know that you all will want to hear some more details on this. So in our final meeting, we'll talk a little bit about this more and share some more details, but we wanted to give you just a high level overview as we know that that is likely on your mind of what happens next now that we finish voting. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Jonah, for our kind of final closeout.
And I'll ask Greg to give us closing remarks, and then we'll ask Millicent and the mayor for closing remarks.
Well, once again, thanks everyone for robust participation. I think we have a very solid set of recommendations that are going to move forward. Having both DOTs represented in the form of Carly Francis and Ryan Winsheimer, I think is important. So these ideas are not going to be hitting DOT leadership without having gone through the filter of the regional folks. So this is a very important step in getting these recommendations moved forward. So thank you.
Williams. Greg Williams.
Oh, sorry, I couldn't quite hear you. Thank you to folks who have served on this committee over the course of the now couple of years that it's been in formation, and really contemplating the work of the project that we are looking forward to seeing come to fruition. I know that the city, while it's undergoing a series of changes, might be a little distracted, and we're continuing to organize our the way that we're going to show up in spaces. But I'm pleased that we've also been tracking very closely. So while the person in the seat has shifted from time to time, know that the commitment to the project and to the program remains steadfast. So I will be taking the information that we've discussed and voted upon here today back to city leadership. Again, affirming what we're affirming, and making sure that we are all on the same page, to the extent that there are ancillary conversations that are happening about the community perspective on the bridge, that there's the full insight, information, and transparency there. But thank you for continuing in this work. Pleased that we've reached what I consider to be a meaningful milestone. And thank you for your leadership, Greg. Thank you for your leadership, Janelle. Pleased that we've been able to move the dial.
Great. And with that, we'll have the mayor close us out.
Again, thank you everyone for 20 months of your life. All of those actions, those benefits do help our entire region, not just Little Vancouver and our smaller Portland area. So we will see everyone April 24th, 9:30, and have a celebration then, and looking forward to the implementation. Please give Greg your name if you're interested in serving on that advisory group during construction. Very few people know as much of this program as you do right now. So you are the citizens, the residents and businesses that have been here the longest. You know what we're looking forward to. We'd love to have you help with that next stage. Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a wonderful day. Thank you. Great work. Please call.